The cold up there, it's a different kind. It doesn't just bite your skin. It seeps into your bones, into your thoughts. It isolates you. In the far north of Canada, along the shores of the Kazan River, winter is not a season. It is the default state of the world, a world of white, of silence, and of secrets buried deep beneath the ice. In November of 1930, a man named Joe Labelle was making his way toward a place he knew well, a small, thriving Inuit village nestled on the shores of Angikuni Lake. It was a familiar stop for him, a place of warmth, of life, of shared stories against the crushing emptiness of the tundra. He was expecting the smell of wood smoke, the laughter of children, the barking of sled dogs. But as he drew closer, a strange stillness fell over him. The air was dead. The silence he felt wasn't peaceful. It was predatory. He called out. His voice was swallowed by the wind, leaving no echo. He called out again. Nothing. Inside, he found a scene frozen in time. A pot of blackened stew, long since frozen solid, still hung over a dead fire pit. A child's half-mended sealskin pants lay on a cot, a needle of bone still resting in the seam, as if the sewer had just stepped away for a moment. He checked another hut. Same thing. Meals left unfinished. Rifles propped against the walls. Everything the villagers would need to survive was right where it should be. And then he found the dogs, the lifeblood of any northern community. 7 of them, starved to death, frozen solid at the end of their chains. Yet, just a few feet away, in a makeshift storage hut, there was plenty of dried fish and seal meat. They had been abandoned, left to die a slow, agonizing death. The unease curdled into sheer terror when he reached the village's small burial ground. The sacred stones that sealed the graves had been moved. The graves themselves, they were empty. The bodies of their ancestors, exhumed and taken. Why? Who would do such a thing? Labelle fled. He ran until his lungs burned, not stopping until he reached the nearest telegraph office miles away. He sent a message, frantic and breathless, to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. He told them everything he saw, the food, the dogs, the empty graves. But there was one detail that haunted him more than any other. One detail that defied all logic in that endless expanse of snow. In the entire village, and for miles around it, there was not a single human footprint. Not his own, not the villagers. It was as if 30 men, women, and children had been plucked straight into the sky. No footprints, no signs of a fight, just snow and silence. The story of Angikuni Lake is not some campfire tale. It's a ghost story written into the official record. When Joe Labelle's telegram reached the RCMP, they didn't dismiss it. The North was a place of hardship and sudden tragedy. But this was different. Constable Milan, a seasoned Mountie, was dispatched to investigate, a journey that itself took several days through the unforgiving terrain. He arrived to find the village exactly as Labelle had described it, an unnerving tableau of interrupted life. The silence was the first thing that struck him, too. He confirmed Labelle's findings: the abandoned rifles, the kayaks, the unfinished meals. These were not people who had packed up and left. You do not leave your weapons and your only mode of transport in the middle of a Canadian winter. To do so is not a decision. It is a death sentence. The police reports and the newspaper articles that followed documented the strangeness. The village's entire population, estimated to be between 25 and 30 souls, was gone. Every last one. They had vanished from the face of the earth. So, the search for answers began. What could have possibly happened here? The simplest theory, of course, is that they left. Perhaps they were migrating to join another tribe, or in search of better hunting grounds. But this theory crumbles under the slightest scrutiny. Why leave the food? Why leave the rifles, tools so essential for survival they were practically an extension of oneself? And the dogs? Inuit communities revered their sled dogs. To let them starve to death is not just impractical. It's a profound betrayal, unthinkable in their culture. And it still doesn't explain the most chilling detail: the lack of footprints. Even if a blizzard had sprung up immediately after they left, covering their tracks, a blizzard strong enough to erase all signs of 30 people and their sleds, it would not explain why the huts, the kayaks, and the empty graves were still visible. The scene was preserved, not erased. So, investigators had to look toward stranger possibilities. Other trappers and hunters in the region, interviewed in the days following the discovery, reported seeing something strange in the sky around the time the village disappeared. A bizarre, pulsating blue light, unlike the northern lights they knew so well. It seemed to hang in the air, shifting and changing shape before vanishing. Was it a meteor? Some unexplained atmospheric phenomenon? Or was it, as some whispered, something else entirely? The idea of alien abduction is easy to scoff at. It sounds like fiction. But put yourself in that place, in that time. Faced with an impossible scene, with no rational explanation, the irrational starts to make a terrifying kind of sense. A vessel from the sky, descending upon the village, lifting its people away without struggle, without a trace. It's a story as old as the stars themselves. Then there is the folklore of the land itself. The Inuit have stories, passed down through generations, of powerful and malevolent spirits. The Tornur Suk, the spirit of the sky, an evil god known to prey on humans. Local Inuit elders, when questioned, were hesitant to even speak of the lake. They considered the area cursed, a place where the veil between worlds is thin. Had the people of Angikuni disturbed something? Had they broken a taboo, and in doing so, invited a spiritual entity to claim them? It could explain the empty graves, a spirit not just taking the living, but the dead as well, erasing the village's entire existence, body and soul. There is one more theory, one that is perhaps the most grounded, and in some ways the most disturbing. It involves not spirits or aliens, but men. In the 1930s, the world was a powder keg, and the vast, unmapped expanses of the Canadian North were of immense strategic interest. Could the village have stumbled upon something it wasn't supposed to see? A secret military operation? A prototype weapon being tested? In this scenario, The disappearance wasn't a mystery. It was a cleanup, a silent, brutally efficient removal of witnesses. It would explain the lack of struggle, the precision of the vanishing act. But there is no record, no declassified file, no deathbed confession, only silence. And this is where the story gets even stranger. After an initial flurry of sensational newspaper articles in November and December of 1930, the story just stopped. The RCMP reports became harder to find. The official investigation concluded with no answers. The media moved on. It was as if a curtain of silence was deliberately drawn around the Angikuni Lake incident. Was the story buried? Deemed too fantastic, too unsettling for the public? Or was it actively suppressed? We may never know. The mystery became a phantom, a piece of local legend whispered by trappers, a fringe story for paranormal enthusiasts. But the facts of that initial discovery remain. Joe Labelle was a real man. The RCMP investigated. The village was found empty. Today, the shores of Angikuni Lake are much as they were then, wild, untouched, empty. The exact location of the village has been lost to time and shifting snows. There is nothing to see. No memorial, no ruins. It's as if the land itself has forgotten. But the land doesn't forget. What happened to the people of Angikuni? Were they victims of a terrestrial conflict or a celestial one? Did they flee from a starving winter or from a spirit that haunted the ice? Or did they simply walk out onto the frozen lake one day and keep walking into a mystery that will never be solved? All we know for sure is that on a cold November day in 1930, a thriving community was alive. The next, it was a ghost town, leaving behind a chilling riddle written in the snow. A riddle with a single, terrifying clue. There were no footprints. Sometimes, the scariest stories are the ones with no ending. The ones that leave you staring into the dark, wondering not just what happened, but what might happen next.